7 o'clock, so I'll call our meeting to order. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Here.
Councilmember Munson, Councilmember Byström,
Here.
and Councilmember Valento.
Here.
I'm sorry, Mayor Bain.
Here. I'd like to invite everyone to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, you have an agenda before you this evening. I will entertain a motion to approve or any changes.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Motion from Councilmember Husnick and a second from Councilmember Valento. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And agenda is approved. Our next item this evening is open forum. Open forum is any interested party's opportunity to provide council with feedback on any topic of your choice. Just a quick note for this evening and every open forum session. Typically, we hear feedback during this time, but don't provide immediate response. Generally, any follow-up responses that might come through staff feedback or future council sessions. And so just want to set expectations that this generally is not a conversation back and forth, but we welcome everyone who is here and look forward to hearing from you. There is a sign-up sheet that I have one name on, and if there are others that also want to speak, I'll just open it up after Mr. Ramseth, who is first on the list. So with that, Mr. Ramseth, and if you want to rise to the podium, and if you just want to state your name and address for the record. Welcome, we're glad you're here.
Thank you. My name is Doug Ramseth. I live at 21220 Fondant Avenue North. I'm the president of the Clear Lake Association, and I'm here today speaking on its behalf. The first thing I'd like to do is to thank the city for the grant of $15,000 that the city gave us in 2019. We coupled that with a grant from Washington County for $15,000, and also the association put in $17,000, and we conducted a whole lake treatment for Eurasian water milfoil. In 2020, we had conducted by Blue Water Science 2 vegetation surveys. A 3rd vegetation survey was done this year, and we have anecdotal reports from our members that there is no milfoil to be found in Clear Lake. The project was a huge success, and we sincerely appreciate the city's support for that project. And now I'm here again asking for your support. The Clear Lake Association is deeply concerned about the safety issues on Eureka Avenue, as well as the erosion problems along Eureka Avenue on Clear Lake's west shore that is caused by off-road parking, the deteriorated condition of the roadbed itself, and also people drive down onto the lake in the wintertime. All of these factors create an erosion issue on the west shore. The Eureka Avenue has little or no shoulder between the public access and a half mile south of that. We have shoreline fishing there. Anglers, many with small children, park in that area. They walk close to the highway. Many times the cars park with their wheels on the roadway. We're in support of shoreline fishing. We just want it to be safe. We've had some close calls, and we don't want anything serious to happen to people there. In 2020, the Washington Conservation District conducted an analysis of the erosion issue as well as the safety issue, and I'd like to read to you their summary report. And they said, the west shore of Clear Lake along Eureka Avenue is frequently used by locals for fishing, sometimes drawing crowds of a dozen or more to a handful of spots scattered along the length of the road and shoreline. Some visitors choose to park their vehicles just off the road on the narrow, sometimes non-existent shoulder or on informal bump outs to access their fishing spots. The increased pedestrian and vehicular traffic have led to accelerated shoreline erosion. Pedestrian safety is also a concern with the limited space between the shoreline and the road. Prospective projects should seek to mitigate these issues. Since that study, the level of traffic on Eureka Avenue has increased significantly. With the addition of the stoplights at Highway 97 and Hornsby Avenue, this has made it both easier and safer to travel from 97 through Eureka Avenue to 11th Avenue in Forest Lake. The City of Columbus is also developing the property around the intersection of Hornsby and 97. This will further increase the traffic. But probably most importantly is that in 2024, we're told that MnDOT is going to rebuild Highway 97. It will be closed to through traffic, and as a result, Eureka Avenue will be a main route between the interstate and 11th Avenue. Therefore, rebuilding of Eureka Avenue really can't wait and be postponed into future years. It really needs action now. We ask you to please look at the recommendation of the city engineer made to you earlier this year, looking for an immediate rebuild of Eureka Avenue. And both the Rice Creek Watershed District and the DNR have said that they would participate in a partnership with the Clear Lake Association and the city of Forest Lake in addressing the erosion issue. The city or the association says step forward, and we would put some financial support behind that erosion project. The Rice Creek Watershed District informs us that there are many grant opportunities available as well. So thank you for listening to us, and if you have any questions, I'd like to try and answer them.
I know the problem,
Okay.
so for sure. it's
All right.
gonna be-
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in open forum? Anyone else that would like to speak in open, please?
Can I just add one statement?
Yeah, can you come to the podium just so that we can hear you? And quick name and address for the record, please.
My name is Sue Williamson, 4893 217th Street North. I live on the north shore of Clear Lake also. And I just have one observation. In the past, probably week to 10 days, we are noticing semis are now starting to use that road. Just myself personally, I have followed or met 4 semis within the week on that road. And so I just want to bring that to your attention too, that it's become discovered as a shortcut, and that is a huge safety concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak? All right, just quick note of follow-up. Appreciate you all being here, appreciate the feedback. Your timing or feedback is very well timed. We are going into a project and kind of bonding question around what, how projects are prioritized and funded, and those considerations are kind of taking place over the next couple of months. So appreciate you all being here and the feedback. So with that, we'll close open forum and bring meeting back to council. Council, before you, we have a closed session.
Mayor Bain, I make a motion that council move to the 2 closed sessions this evening. The first one for labor negotiations under Minnesota Statute 13D.03 Subdivision 1B, and the second session for the city administrator performance evaluation under Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3A. The closed sessions will be held in the Forest Lake Conference Room and will commence immediately. Once both closed sessions are completed, the City Council will reconvene the open meeting portion of tonight's City Council meeting in council chambers. In other words, council will not be returning to chambers until after both sessions are completed.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? And we're in closed session. I'd move that we move back into open session.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And motion carries. And quick summary of our closed session. Council had a robust discussion of our evaluation process. We have identified some additional pieces of information that we would like to collect. We are going to do that, and then we will bring the review process back to a future meeting on a future agenda. With that, we can transition to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. And council, before you, you have consent agenda items 7A through 7I. I will entertain a motion or any changes.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda A through I.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Oppose? And consent agenda is approved. Our next item this evening is 8A, Resolution 07262103, which is the citywide sprinkling and watering ban. And Dave, I think you're walking us through this.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. I believe all of you have a letter that we received the Friday before last from Minnesota DNR, just letting us know that there's more than 50% of Minnesota experiencing a severe drought. During the break, Brandon Goodman looked it up as well, and it's up to 72% of the state now is in severe drought, and 18% is in extreme drought. So this number is a little old, even being a week or 10 days old. So with that, experiencing the severe drought, the DNR basically went into the drought warning phase. And when they go into a drought warning phase, cities with populations over 1,000 have to start restricting water according to their water supply plan, and just all public water suppliers have to start conserving water. As it says in the letter, their goal is to reduce water usage to 50% average usage in January. So the city of Forest Lake uses approximately 1 million gallons in the month of January, 1 million gallons a day. And right now, we're using between 2.4, sometimes up to 2.8, 2.9 million gallons a day.
And the goal is 50% of the January number?
So the goal to get down to is 1.5 million, and we're running at about 2.4 to 2.7, 2.8 per day. So the city already, by city ordinance, is always in a watering restriction. Some cities, you can water any day of the week, any time of the day, any of that, but the city code already has watering restrictions for the city at odd and even days, and then in between specific times, 8 and 11 p.m. and between 4 and 7 a.m. So if we assume, or hope and assume that residents are using this odd even watering, and between those times of day, the only way to get down to that 1.5 million is doing a complete watering sprinkling ban. It's a lot of water to conserve. I mean, it's something we should be doing, but it's the only possible way to get down, cut 1 million gallons a day is to, declare a watering ban. Also, city code tells us that the administrator can enact a watering ban when the city doubles its usage. So when we hit 2 million gallons a day, we can declare our own ban, but our water supplier, what we can make as a city with our water plants is a little over 3 million gallons a day. So as long as it's not putting complete strain on the system, we tend to not, if people want nice yards and people want to have green grass and all that, which we understand, and it's a revenue source as well. I mean, not going to lie, it creates revenue for the city to move water, but now with the DNR, it's something that, they're telling us we need to do is conserve. So really here tonight to answer questions and seek a resolution to declare a ban.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, how does this affect car washes, for instance?
So right now, this ban is just on irrigation and sprinkling. So the car washes and even hose watering of your plants and landscaping at your yard is, if you're using a hose and keeping your flowers alive, that isn't in the ban. It's just strictly irrigation.
Okay, well,
Are we certain our community knows we already have an odd even in place?
I think this will be helpful to help people realize that that is what it is. You know, you have to assume, you can't say, well, maybe we should go out and say, let's do odd even, and you may reduce an amount, but then you don't know. You know, it's hard to go around and accomplish that as well.
I'd be willing to bet they don't know.
Yeah, well, it's just, you see it kind of out there on social
You do.
media. The question is posed periodically. You know, do we have a watering ban? Nobody seems to be able to answer that question or know the answer to that question. That's why that's why I'm wondering, I don't know, is communication a first step? But if we need, I mean, if it's this critical and we need to move quickly, we need to move quickly.
But
I guess if every single house would be watering every single day of the week, that would mean if you cut that in half, you could drop about 750,000 gallons a day, which would go, so you go from 2.4 down to just a little over 1.5 million. But that would be if every single person was watering every single day. So the theory is even if half the people are watering every other and the other half are watering, you still would need everybody to be off to get down to that 1.5. Now, if we do a complete watering ban and all of a sudden we're down to, 1 million January usage, then you could start a communication thing going forward when the ban is lifted, that letting people know that it's odd even. That way, so we could, in the future, be able to stay within range and conserve water.
that was my follow-up question, is what is the communication plan for? So if we enact this tonight, how does that get communicated to the community? I noticed because it is effective immediately.
Yep, so if the resolution is passed, there's social media ready to go. There's stuff for the website. Hopefully the Forest Lake Times will be reporting this as well to get in the newspaper. And that is part of our water supply plan, is social media, city email, and local newspaper. We also have reader boards, construction reader boards that will kind of be like the speed trailer. We would move it around town in neighborhoods, start in where we know the heavy irrigation is, and it'd say mandatory watering ban, and then flash the website so people driving by can go to the website and read through that. So, the plan would be to start in the southern part of town, the more the developments, and work through that way, and then just kind of work around the city every day, just moving it in different spots.
Yeah.
So I noticed there's a 30-day exception for newly installed lawns. And then what flips the switch kind of back to the odd even? Is it, do we
Rain.
have a certain amount of rain? What is?
It'll stay in the ban until the DNR lifts or retreats back from the drought warning phase. Worst case scenario, if they go to not the warning phase, but there's a severe drought phase and then an extreme drought phase, and then you have to, if it keeps getting worse, and then it goes to a 25% more than your January usage. And then when it goes to extreme, then you're starting to try to sell bottled water, and then you're shutting down car washes and you're shutting down everything. So it could go worse, and if it gets better once, I'm sure council's all seen the maps on the news where they show where the droughts is. So when that pulls away, when they see the moisture, in the ground, but we're from, depending where you're at, you're 5.5 to 6 inches in a deficit of rain just to get back to where you're supposed to be.
Mhm.
So you hope you have a super wet fall, but even a wet fall may not get you out of the drought. You may be talking going in at this ban through next spring if you don't get, I mean, depends on what you get for snow as well.
Been dry for a year already, including last winter.
Yeah.
So I recognize that it's for properties served by city water only. Do we have any farmland that's served by city water where there will be an irrigation issue for
No, so
the livelihood issue? You have concerns,
Yep.
you know?
So that's a very good question too. So this watering ban would not include private wells and anything not hooked onto the city water system. So, for example, Forest Hills Golf Course, Castlewood Golf Course, the Fenway Athletic Fields, those are all using stormwater reuse and a private well. So they're not on city water supply. I believe the high school as well just got a huge grant to do reuse irrigation there, so that'll be the part to feel out if this ban goes on, is when phone calls come in to educate people too about stormwater reuse and wells. And I mean, around the lake, people have private wells, so we will see people irrigating that aren't doing anything wrong. I mean, we still want everyone to conserve water, but they aren't technically part of this ban. You know, they're not required to odd, even, not water at all, so.
Although I've heard it's affecting the aquifers too. So the
Yep.
wells are
Yeah, it definitely is. It's just,
an issue.
yep.
So I think all of those pieces are really important in communication with the community, so they understand why they're seeing some people watering, why are you watering a golf course? That doesn't make sense to people. But if they realize it's stormwater, obviously easier for them to understand. So I just think that's really critical, because I'm sure this is gonna be a difficult one.
Yep. No, and I completely understand. People like to have green yards and nice yards, and like I said, we could declare a watering ban for 400,000 gallons a day ago, according to our code, but, we know that is a sensitive subject, so it's more or less the DNR wants us to conserve. We have applications in with the DNR to drill new wells for our water treatment plant. We also don't want to make them angry as well, if not following their requests. So it's, we want to stay on their side too. And we want to conserve water. I mean, it's a revenue builder, but also you're pumping a lot of water out of the ground to spray in the grass, so.
So with that follow-up, I think it's important to have the initial communications, but then also, to the extent that this goes on, some follow-up communications and some reminders, especially as we're getting later into the fall, if that's not lifted, and if there's always sometimes some fall landscaping projects or things that people are doing, and just some reminders, although I guess new lawns would be, exempt. But just ongoing communication, and then ultimately when it's lifted, I think that's another good opportunity to just be a reminder of what the law is, or what statute does provide it with that odd even sequence, and, because I think there is just some general, people don't know.
Right.
So, good opportunity to remind when that ban is lifted. Any other questions or points we should be considering this evening?
I just have one question. I assume other cities are implementing a ban as well. I believe Minneapolis did already.
I would say a great number of cities received the same letter that we did. I think it all depends on how quickly some move and some don't move. I mean, they use an example as August, and their example, I would assume you're gonna see a lot of cities following suit. There's a number already that have it not as close into the metro ring, but, like your Sartels, or is it Minnetrista? There's some other cities around, but with a letter like this, we're not the only city in the state that just got this letter, so it's, I would say, over 50% if 50% of the state is in a drought, 50% of those cities within that drought area are getting this letter as well, so.
Council, any other questions? Otherwise, happy to entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion. This is one of those things that I hate to do, but needs to be done. That's all there is to it. So I make a motion that we adopt Resolution 07-26-21-03, resolution regulating the non-essential water usage upon critical water deficiency as authorized by Minnesota Statute 103G.291 and Forest Lake Ordinance 51.10.
I'll second.
The motion from Councilmember Husnick and a second from Councilmember Valento. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. Next item on our regular agenda this evening is the Senior Center Coordinator position. New hire, Dan.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, I'm here to present the Senior Center Coordinator hiring recommendation. Back when the Senior Center reopened back in May of 2021, from its temporary closure due to COVID-19, we hired Jill Green as a seasonal employee to assist with reopening and running of the Senior Center. To date, Jill has done a fantastic job of both managing the reopening, coordinating all the activities that are going on at the Senior Center, as well as communicating back and forth with the Senior Center board. So based on Jill's proven track record, the decision to formally offer the Senior Center Coordinator position to Jill was made. This offer is contingent upon City Council approval. So council is aware this is a part-time position with the city that we have. It's not a full-time position, it is part-time. And just on a side note, I did stop by the Senior Center last week, and the amount of work that Jill has done to get that building ready for opening, the amount of programming that's happening on there it's phenomenal. I mean, it's a different center, people are happy, it's full, the basement has new carpet, it's just an amazing amount of work that she's been able to do from May to now. So staff's recommendation is to hire Jill Green for the position of Senior Center Coordinator at grade 3, step 2. And I'd be happy to answer any questions council has regarding the hiring.
Council questions?
Yeah, I have just a couple. It's not a big deal, but when you say temporary, are you talking how many hours a week are you thinking?
Part-time, she's up to 25. It's budgeted for, I believe, 20 hours a week, but there's been a few weeks in there where programming might be a little bit heavier, so we do have a few extra hours in there to allow her to work a little bit extra to get that work accomplished. But we found when she first started, she was having to put a few more hours in just because there was so much. I mean, you're restarting a whole organization. She's since backed down, so that 25-hour threshold is what we're thinking she'll be working for, or up to that amount.
And she's okay with that? Okay.
So budget impact for this move, I know the Senior Center transition has, there's been a transition of leadership and how that is being funded. Can you just remind council and myself in particular, long-term budget impact on which fund is the salary coming out of, and how does that compare with what the old structure was? If there's
Yeah, this will be a general fund expenditure. Prior to this year with Jill is basically the city had a line item in the general fund budget of $50,000 that was given to the Senior Center for, at that time it was called maintenance, but it was basically for anything that they needed to fill in for. There'll be a small increase in the budget probably for the Senior Center.
Okay.
Just have to remember we are still going through the first year trying to figure out what those expenses are. At the most, I think the Senior Center budget was like $52,000 total last year. It'll be closer to 68 to 70, but we expect that probably to level off or at least go down because we just don't know how much, but not a major impact on the budget.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Other questions?
So who'll be supervising Jill? Will she be under Parks, Trails, and Lakes, or?
Well, we'll kind of do a team thing where we meet with Jill every Wednesday morning. Myself, Dan, and Jamie, and we go through the senior activities. So it's kind of a group effort, to be honest with you.
And that structure's plan, is that kind of the plan structure for
Yeah,
at least the near term here as we're getting?
For quite a while, we need to do that because we each have our own perspective on, I mean,
Yes.
Jamie has more of a parks, Dan and I have more administration, and we've talked through a lot of different things, so yes, I think it'll stay that way for a while.
And will there be kind of goals and a work plan developed? You know, obviously, there's some growth that's been experiencing expansions in programming. You know, I know one of the concerns, you know, over the years has been, you know, we have a lot of eligible individuals in the community to participate in the center, and we're really not reaching those populations. And so, you know, just wondering about.
Yeah, the first goal here is to understand what the senior center did and how they did it, and try to fix and repair and to get those all back in shape. Then the next one is having a long-term for the programming side of that, because Jill has a lot of programming ideas, which traditional senior centers do that I don't think the senior center did. Then absolutely is to expand the membership. I believe we only have around 200 members. I think that was at least that's the number of newsletters that we print. So that's a good indication of how small of an audience that we hit. So that is part of the long-term goal, is to get there with increase. So I think we're starting to see a good rebound in, according to Jill, the number of people who are coming back to the senior center. They're comfortable. You know, we've got card players, bingos. We had a lot to do with the senior center building itself to get it ready for the seniors to come back. The basement had to be totally renovated, basically, because we had some animal problems. Carpeting, as Dan mentioned, painting, and then we had to put in the COVID restrictions and make sure everything was clean. So we're getting past that now. Jill is understanding and getting the programming that the seniors were used to and comfortable with, and now we look forward to having more programming and more seniors. As much we just don't know how many it can hold at this point, or what the audience is, but that's the goal. And we send out newsletters every other month, I think it is. So we're hoping to expand where that goes, and, you know, like you say, communications, getting online, getting social media, getting emails, and all those things, and try to hit the seniors and try to do some outreach. So, yeah.
And just to build off that point too, one thing to remember too is that we originally designed a 3-phase reopening, so we're still in phase 2. So we're still easing into that full open, and part of that full open, once we're fully open, I think after that point, we'll really start to really hit the membership drive hard, because we still are kind of in that, Jill's really learning what the reopening looks like, what the phase 2 looks like. I mean, in phase 2 and phase 3 are very similar, but we're still not fully reopened yet, just because we're kind of easing back in from the COVID restrictions. And all of those can change depending upon what the variant does, what the current restrictions from COVID are. So it's sort of, everything right now is sort of a moving target just in terms of reopening and membership goals. But long-term, yeah, we'll have those goals established.
And I think we're planning a grand reopening in October. So we'll get that information out we're hopefully by then we'll be fully back, almost fully back at least, so.
That's helpful. Council, any other questions for the item on the agenda? Otherwise, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Mayor Bain, I move approval of the hiring of Jill Green to the position of Senior Center Coordinator as outlined by Dan Ondo.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion from Councilmember Byström and a second from Councilmember Husnick. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. It ends our regular agenda this evening. We do have a couple of discussion-only items, just for note. Discussion items will not require council action. Any conclusions that we discussed tonight would come back to council in a future meeting for an official vote. So this is just a workshop-only portion of our agenda. And first item tonight, the first quarter 2021 financial report. Ann Sandy.
Again, technology got me. Have to plug There you go. So you just have to walk up here. The council has before them the first quarter report, which is through March of 2021. And I'm going to go through briefly what some of the changes are. And what this report does is it compares this year's quarter to last year's quarter at the same time. So it provides trend analysis of some sort to, because really a city's budget really, for the most part, doesn't change from year to year. So there's some trend analysis, and if there is some changes, that would show in the trend. So I'm going to go through real briefly some of the things that I see as differences in comparison. And looking at the general fund, the revenues, as you can see, look a little bit different. There's some negatives there. And that has to do with, there's a correction that needs to be made in the intergovernmental. We had a reduction in a cash receipt as well as a accrual reversal, which we have to correct, so we're going to be bringing that back up. We just haven't made that entry yet. And if you look at the miscellaneous revenue, we are looking at the investment revenue right now and determining, because we bring things down to market value, and that market value fluctuates throughout the year. So I'm anticipating this next quarter we're going to see that leveling out. And if need be, we're going to maybe bring PMA in to explain what those differences are and how that works and how that fluctuation works. But I anticipate things to even out this next quarter. Looking at the expenditures, I did not see anything extremely different from last year. I mean, there was some slight fluctuations, but when you look at the bottom line, we're pretty much on target to what we were last year. And looking at the Surface Water Management Fund, again, those revenues are going to look a little strange for the first quarter, even with the sales and those graphs. I hate to even show them at this time of year because it's really going to be kind of impossible to really get anything out of those graphs. But what will happen again this next quarter will be we'll be seeing that revenue coming in, and we'll be able to get some sense out of where that revenue source is. Again, those interest earnings are coming in at that negative because of the market value fluctuations. But looking at the expenditures, there's, I don't see anything that's extremely alarming there either. It's, you're going to see a difference in the percentage just because there's an additional capital outlay budget that's kind of making that fluctuation a little bit different. But when you look at each line item, I don't see anything alarming that's happening in that fund either. And looking at the airport fund, the same thing. I'm not seeing anything alarming there. I'm seeing pretty much comparable to the prior year. Again, that capital outlay and spending is going to be different from year to year, but looking at the graph, there is the ag rent that may have come in sooner last year than this year, but I anticipate that to be making itself up in the future months. Water fund again, I don't see anything alarming there either. It's very comparable to what it was in the prior year. There may have been some additional spending in certain areas, but we actually got the bond interest corrected to the right level. Last year it was a little bit low, but that I don't see as being an issue. Again, that graph is going to make itself up in the next quarter. Same thing with the sewer fund. I don't see anything alarming there as well. It's pretty comparable and where we should be at this point in time. So with that, I can go to the cash account, and I'll flip this over. Just to give you an idea, I always put this in the quarterly report to show how the cash is compared to where we were last year. And looking at the different scenarios as far as I do it by the number of years of maturity for the investments, and kind of showing you we're going towards that that trend of putting it out further instead of the 1 or 2 or 3 years, put it out a little bit further. So that trend is showing on this analysis, as well as taking, diversifying that investments that you will see on the bottom there, that we're not doing as many CDs, and we're putting more into government securities and municipal securities, because that seems to be a better rate at this point in time, but yet diversifying enough where we don't have too many eggs in one basket, as they say. So that's all I have for you, unless there's any questions from you.
Council, any questions on the first quarter report? First quarter is always a little light, just because
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
a little
beginning
bit-
of the
A
year.
little bit different.
I guess my only request would be on, I know this is always a challenge this time of the year with budget, would be timing of the second quarter, and as soon as we're able to have even preliminary numbers is helpful to kind of inform the budget process, but I know that that's always
No,
challenging, so.
I'm hoping to get it for sure by the beginning of September.
Perfect.
If that's okay.
Perfect. And in that second quarter, we at least get that first revenue payment, so we at least start to see trends that, okay, that
Yeah,
help
and
to
that
inform.
interest will probably be
Yeah.
a little bit different, so we'll see that whole revenue being a little bit different than what we're seeing right now.
Okay. And if for some reason the revenue or the interest is not, that might also be a good just conversation, just to help understand our expectations and what's happening with the market.
Yeah.
Might inform some budget
And maybe it's even
conversation.
getting PMA in again to
Yeah,
present
right.
to you to
Yep.
kind of explain that whole market and where it is right now.
Terrific. Council, any other questions or requests? All right. Thank you, Sandy. Our next item this evening is the voter redistricting for elections and polling locations. And Karen, this is you.
Hey. Thank you very much, Mayor, council members. In your packet, you have a staff memo, and we are getting ready to take a look at redistricting for elections. The county has contacted us. You may or may not realize, we have a joint powers agreement working with Washington County for our elections. They have already reached out to us for redistricting. Redistricting comes around every 10 years with census information, so it's something that kind of has to happen. We need to take a look at this now, so that in 10 years, when Forest Lake has grown even more, we're not in a crunch for certain districts. One of the districts that they are looking at or brought to our attention is District 5, which is in the south western part of Forest Lake. And there is a map, so I'm gonna put the map up so you guys can take a look at it. But it is in your packet. Let me figure out. Should pop up on the screen, and you should see where it says P5 down in the bottom corner. That's District 5, or Precinct 5, sorry. That's the precinct that they are showing the most concern on. On this map, I also put in a number under each precinct. That's the number of voters that voted for the 2020 elections from each precinct. So you can see that Precinct 5 has almost 4,000 voters, while the other ones, Precinct 1 has almost 3,000, but the other ones hover around, a little less than that. The suggestion that they brought forward is that we might want to take a look at splitting Precinct 5 and creating an additional precinct. So that's one of the things that they've been brought forward to us. Why this is coming to you now is because once this starts happening, in your packet, you also have a statutory schedule. And once this starts happening, things are going to come very quickly. So I have the schedule laid out that was provided by Washington County. And then in red, I've also provided the corresponding council dates that we will need to take a look at this information. It will be coming forward to you. And then there are decisions that you will have to make in terms of the redistricting. And then, of course, elections are going to be everybody's going to be gearing up for elections then in 2022. I've also provided some information about what is the county's role versus the city's role, and so that information is in here. The good news is, because we have a joint powers agreement with Washington County, it's not a lot of staff time that we have to contribute to this. We will work with the Washington County GIS team. They will mostly help us draw those boundaries. They will come forward to council and you guys will vote on those. But they will work with staff to take a look at the districting lines and what makes the most sense for Forest Lake based on the voting numbers that we're seeing now and any predictions that, based on growth that is going to be happening. So they'll work with us on that. And basically, that's all we need to do. The other thing that we'll need to do if we decide to go ahead and create a new precinct is we will have to establish a polling location within that precinct. And that is also voted on by council. And then that brings me to my next topic is the polling locations. So right now, we have 2 polling locations here at the city center, one for precinct 1 and one for precinct 2. We are looking at we would like to move precinct 1 back into precinct 1. We now have the senior center that the city is in charge of those operations, and we could utilize the senior center as the precinct 1 polling location. Precinct 2 would stay here, then we would have to look for another precinct location for the new precinct that would probably or potentially get created. So those are some decisions that will be coming at you fairly quickly once they start coming. So it's just, this information is coming to you really preliminary right now, so you have, you're aware of it, time to think about it. No decisions need to be made about anything right now, but as we move forward, get towards the end of the year, I will be doing some training on that. I will be working with Washington County, and then into the new year, information will start coming in front of you. So is there questions? I can put the map back up if you wanted to see the map. And then I've also provided some historical information of the last redistricting and the resolutions that came with those. And I think that was in 2012. Or 2012. So this is back to the map then.
Question on process and timing. So if the new polling place is approved, that is effective for the 2022 election, is that right?
That would be
The
my
new
understanding, because that
precinct,
would, that
so
all happens prior to
effective?
the 2022 election.
And in absence of us approving, there's not another opportunity to redistrict for 10 more years,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So if we look at this and we think, well, is it necessary? The question isn't so much, is it necessary today? Is it going to be necessary 8 years from now is part of
Correct.
what I think we need to consider,
And
right?
they highly suspect that it will be.
Right, okay. It's certainly where our growth is. I guess I'd be interested because precinct 4 also does have a fair amount of undeveloped space, but it's the type of space that isn't quite as, there's some more structural challenges that are the development isn't going to be as high in precinct 4. I'd be interested if maybe that line, if there's a different line that's drawn, that maybe it's a precinct added, but maybe it's between the two. I don't know what that looks like, but.
And I can bring that up to Washington County GIS team when we start looking at this and the precinct boundaries. Can bring that up that, maybe we need to take a look at precinct 4 also.
Yeah, that was going to be my question as well, is, if we're looking at, we're not looking at the next year or two, we're looking at up to 10. Is there a way to project growth, so that we can make the best informed decision possible?
Mayor, City Council, just a friendly reminder, within your city comp plan, there is a staging plan. So that does lay that in 10-year increments. That would be helpful to just look at.
An obvious question, but is that also a document that Washington County is looking at as part of that consideration? And if not, maybe make them aware that that is available?
Yeah, that I don't know, but I can certainly find out once we start talking with them. And yeah, I think the first step would be that the elections office is gonna contact us again, and they'll start letting us know when all this is happening, and then get us in touch with their GIS team, and then we'll start taking a look at all that. But I can certainly see where they're getting their numbers from, where they're getting all that information from. And
Any other points of feedback?
And again, this is just all coming in front of you so that you are aware of it right now, so you have all the information, because once things happen, it'll happen fast.
Appreciate the heads up. And then whatever we can do to get precinct one, it's not so much precinct one, it's just having two precincts in the same building
Right.
always creates some logistics challenge. And
Yep,
one
yeah.
line's moving faster than the other.
Yeah, and that'll come to you by resolution,
Perfect.
so it'll just be vote on that to move that, if that's what you decide to do, to move that over into probably the senior center. I can look for other options if that doesn't seem like where you would want to have it, but senior center seems the most likely place to move that right now, anyway.
Personally, I'd leave that open to Washington County feedback
Yeah.
on what they think supports their operations. Any other feedback related to precinct one? Karen, anything else do you need from us on that?
Not at this time, no, but as stuff comes forward, then might be asking for feedback on more.
And then next item, the Board of Appeal meetings and training. Karen, this one's also yours?
That one is also mine, and so that came about, that information, because I sent out an email, council received an email from me for the Board of Appeals. Every year, they send information for training, and so I know Mara is trained. I think Kathy said you did the training as well. So I think statutorily, we're required to have at least one person trained. They would prefer to have two, so that in the event, if we're doing local meetings, in the event that one person can't be there, there is a backup to attend those meetings. The meetings have occurred in April, so currently, I've never experienced one of the local board meetings. I got here after that in 2019. So I have really no experience or idea of what happened during those local board meetings prior to that. I did kind of look at some of the documents that are there. Just based on some of the information I saw, it doesn't appear that the county changes much when somebody appeals. I didn't see that there was changes for a lot of people. I can go back and take a look at more of that, and I can present that to council to see what exactly, what properties they've changed, if they changed anything at all prior to 2019, I guess it would be. In 2020, because of the pandemic and our building was closed, that responsibility was all handed back to the county in an open board meeting, what they call an open board meeting. And so they took that responsibility back. I know they did that with a lot of other cities. And statutorily, when they take that responsibility back, they have to keep it for a minimum of 2 years. So that is why we didn't have the meetings in 2021 either. Now we're taking a look at, are we going to do this in 2022? And in the email, I did notify that for this year, last year I didn't have anything for 2020. Nobody contacted me, nobody asked. For 2021, I had one resident contact me and ask, when are the meetings for the property taxes? And I was able to direct her to the county. She seemed satisfied with that answer. I didn't hear back from her. I didn't hear back from the county. There didn't seem to be any concern. So I really only had one resident. I don't know if council had anybody contact them regarding those meetings. My take on that is it's a county function, and maybe the county is more aptly suited to handle that for the residents. I understand because Forest Lake is up here kind of separated from the rest of Washington County. It might be easier to host those meetings here. I don't know how much work is involved in putting all of that together. I know there's a lot of pre-work to get the meeting set up, and then there's a lot of post-work based on some of the historical stuff that I've seen. Time-wise, I don't know how much, and so I don't know for staff time, resources, what that means on my plate or other staff members' plates in terms of time and resource. So it's kind of up in the air. What do we do with this at this point? It's in the county hands. It can stay right where it is in the county hands, or council can decide we want to take that meeting and bring it back to the local level here in Forest Lake again. So I'm looking for feedback on what council might want to do about that. I will have to contact Washington County and get in touch with them, and I don't know at this point, may or may not be, that it has to be brought back to the city on a resolution level, or do they just hand it back over to us like we handed it back to them? I don't know yet. So I'll have to find that out and have a conversation with them to figure out if we want to bring it back, what do we do?
Yeah, and I think if the council has to understand, some of you have been here, how many have we done every year? How often? Is it 4 people? Is it 5 people? Is it worth keeping it here or going back to the county for 4 hearings or 1 hearing for that matter? And as far as a cost benefit, really, I don't think you get a lot of people if I don't miss my guess, but.
The couple times I was here, it was only a half a dozen people. So.
Yeah, and if you're only getting a half a dozen people, so say you get 6 people,
I was missing something.
you know, is it worth the amount of staff time and stuff that we have to do to prepare for it, which Karen knows better than I, or is it better just to leave it with the county and have them take that burden, so.
Other points of feedback, questions, or kind of comments on this topic?
Well, there's county personnel that come here for these meetings too. That's the whole point, really.
So, it is certainly the county's meeting. The county facilitates it. They do provide the expertise. It's just council's role to sit in on those discussions and to be kind of if you can call us unbiased as we can, observer to that process. So my take on those meetings, so I know we've got there's a fairly lengthy history here, and historically, in the past, before my time, those meetings were very well attended with long lines and there was a lot of kind of robust discussions happening around property values and some disputes and people who felt strongly about that. I think the county's process has gotten better, and some of those pain points over the years have eased. My concern on just handing it over, stop offering it that service, is even if I'm only sitting in on 2 sessions, I learn so much in those sessions about what's happening with property values and some of the impact that, the process isn't here for us as council members, but it just provides a good dialogue that is in the residents' backyard. It's sitting with the residents' council members who have, it's our revenue that we're collecting. The county's just doing the valuation on our behalf. That really helps to kind of, it's where the rubber meets the road of what we do and who's paying for it. It's a nice, it's that counterbalance and advocacy process that residents have to be able to kind of push back if they see something's out of line. And there are times when adjustments are made, where maybe one resident will say something and that'll bring a fact pattern where maybe a number of properties are impacted. So it's also a good problem solving, where a couple of sessions I've sat in on, somebody wants to maybe do a lot line adjustment, and then they're collaborating in that discussion around what might they do from a tax perspective to help. There's kind of a land use question that sometimes gets answered. So there's a number of kind of resident needs that are met in those, and if we have an opportunity for, I know there's some staff time in setting up the meeting, but it is the county that does the work of the prepping and the materials and all the follow-up. And if all we're doing is essentially providing our space and our council ears to listen to those sessions, even if the attendance is fairly low, that feedback alone is a good touch point for us, versus there have been times, I think about the year that the property values on some part of the lake went up by like 25%, and we had 15 people in the room with similar concerns. And again, it just helps us know what's happening in our own communities. And I don't know if in giving that to the county that we get that same level of transparency. So I would advocate that we keep it, unless if I were to hear from staff that it's just, administratively overly burdensome.
And I agree with you, Mayor Bain. I do think it provides a valuable insight into the local impact on our citizens. And I think there's something to be said for a council member in the community sitting at the table with them when they have concerns about what's happening in their own community. With that said, I agree. I'm in support of, always in support of looking for efficiencies as well. So I can kind of see where you're headed with this. This is just one I'm going to have to weigh. I know we're not making a decision on anything tonight, but, I just, and maybe ask a few questions, of my residents. How do they feel about, shifting this, for example, down to the county level? And then we're asking them to drive too. It's not happening right in their local community, and that's probably not as relevant for them, but just another consideration that comes to. And I agree, it provided me some really valuable insights into what's happening. What is that impact on our citizens? And I think it's helpful in future planning as well as a council member, budgeting and planning in terms of what those,
I'll add just one point on to that. The current real estate market has done some very unusual things, and so just timing might also, I know that, this next year, they handled it this year, but 2022 might also be a bit of people having some sticker shock when they get that preliminary assessment notice, and that in and of itself might just generate more activity. And those are, again, in my experience, there's valuable conversations to be a part of.
that big picture is really important to me. What's happening with property taxes, what's happening with city imposed taxes, county imposed taxes, school district taxes. It's a big package, and so, we have to look at it that way too, so that we're not overburdening the citizens in our community.
Okay. I can find out from the county what we need to do. I mean, if it's by resolution or what we have to do to bring that back. So I can find out that information. I can, send that email back out too, because the training is still open.
I will
Just
also-
FYI.
I'll also put a
So
plug
if,
in for the
if we end up
training.
bringing that back,
Yeah.
we'd have at least 2 council members who are trained. And so I know the county's perspective, more is better. So that training is still open until I think the end of July.
And the training does a really nice job of describing both the process that you're going through and kind of the foundations of how property values are set and what does that mean. But also it does a really nice job of describing what is the council member's role in those meetings. And so if there's some hesitancy on what am I even going to do here, they do a really good job of saying, here's your role, here's not your role. And I found that valuable, so. It's not, I don't know, half an hour maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty quick and easy. Highly recommend.
I'm trained.
Oh, good, excellent.
Oh, you are too? Okay.
That is super, it's only like 30 minutes.
Okay, so I'll double check with the
I'll do
county
it.
then.
I'll
Sounds
do it.
like you want to bring it back as a feedback. So I will double check with the county and find out what do we got to do to make that happen.
Murphy's Law says that we'll have nobody because
What's
you
that?
bring it, Murphy's Law says we'll bring it back here and we'll have nobody attend, but that's okay.
We'll see what happens.
Does anyone know how long, if you're trained, when that expires?
I think it's 2 years.
Okay.
Karen, anything else on that?
I don't have anything else unless there's more questions.
All right. Got kind of a marathon tonight. Let's move into staff updates. Let's start with Patrick, go around the table, and then we'll go up the dais.
Just 2 things. Was at the chamber golf outing today. They did a great job. They had a full boat. Everybody was full and a lot of people, so they did a great job. And 2, just to remind anybody who hasn't gotten back to me about August 30th, we're planning a budget meeting for that day to kick off our budget at 6 o'clock. If you have an issue with it, I know I've got some responses, but We'd like to pencil that in. That'll be a long session with not only the budget, but Ellers coming back in to further talk about bonding and 10-year plans, or actually long-term plans, I should now say. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Patrick? All right, Ryan.
Mayor, City Council, just a couple project updates. The 2021 street improvement project, all the streets have been completed other than Goodview to 10th, where we're working on the pedestrian trail and ped ramps and trying to hold off on the pavement work until the school project's even further along. And then Fifth Avenue still remains to be completed. If you don't know, we have ran into some contaminated soils there. We're waiting for the soils results to come in to know what we can do with the material, and upon knowing that, we should know by tomorrow. Then we can execute the manifest on hauling the stuff to where it needs to go. That's why it's all roped off the way it is if you drive by there today. And then North Shore Street and North Shore Circle Street Utility Improvement Project that you guys have authorized plans and specs for. We came to the Parks, Lakes, and Trails Committee meeting last Wednesday, July 21st, to talk about stormwater potential improvements on the parkland and how we could cross-use, I guess, the two parkland areas there. So they're supportive of that. That'll then allow us to develop some potential concepts or drainage areas in the project that we can then lead into some public engagement from there. So just want to keep you updated. That's, we met with Parks and Trails. All the preliminary topo survey's been completed out there. So now we can kind of look at some of the preliminary things we need to start. First, we'll go neighborhood meetings, then probably some one-on-one conversations too with property owners. There were 2 or 3 property owners here at that meeting, so probably the word's getting out there. So if you are getting questions, feel free to direct them towards myself and go from there, so.
Thank you. Any questions for Ryan? All right, Dave.
No additional updates tonight.
Anything for Dave? Chief Peterson.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council members, I've got one update for you. The Police and Fire Department will be partnering with area neighborhoods to celebrate and support Night Night, which will be Tuesday, August 3rd. Right now, we have 21 block parties scheduled that we're going to be visiting with both police and fire. And we're looking forward to a great evening. If your neighborhood is not hosting a block party, feel free to meet us at Lakeside Memorial Park. We'll also be there, and I'm sure there'll be a pretty large gathering. So other than that, I have nothing for you unless you have questions for me.
Anything for Chief this evening? Right. Chief Newman.
Mayor and Council, I do have some updates for fire and building. Next Thursday, July 29th, we have a joint fire board meeting at 7 p.m. here at the City Center. We'll be talking about budgets during that. We're still accepting applications for the position of firefighter. That will close on 9/1/21. And then, as Dave had talked about, we are extremely dry. Washington County at this point is under moderate fire danger. Over half the state is either high, very high, or extreme danger. And over half the state now is back into burning restrictions. Washington County isn't at this point, but if we do not get rain the next couple days, I think by the end of the week we will be back onto burning restrictions. For the building department, we are in the process of accepting applications for permit tech, and we are close to in the process of accepting applications for the Inspector 1 position. Both positions are currently in the budget. The Inspector 1 position is not filled, and our permit tech will be moving out of town here in September or October. So we're hoping to hire for that to have at least a little overlap for training. Starting tomorrow, the building department will be sending out online evaluation surveys via email and text message. The evaluation surveys will give homeowners and contractors a platform to tell us how we are doing, provide feedback on our process and provide recommendations on things that we can do better. So we're excited to get that out. There will actually be 2 surveys, one that is issued at permit issuance, and that will check our customer service and plan review process, and then one that will be issued after inspections are scheduled to see how we're doing with the inspection process. And then we'll be working on another survey for project completion, which we hope to get completed here in the next 30 days. That's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions for Chief? Go ahead.
Can you just clarify, Chief, that's a kind of a targeted survey then, right?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
not a
targeted
general
for
survey, that's,
either contractors or homeowners that pull a permit. And so
Okay.
once that permit is issued, they've gone through plan review, or in some cases, they won't need plan review, but we'll send them out a survey to see how we did in communication, answering questions.
are you looking at a specific window of time for the developers or the homeowners?
Well,
that have pulled?
when you pull a permit, so they'll issue it on a specific date,
Mhm.
and once that is generated in our computer, the very next day, they will send out a survey.
Oh, got it, okay.
Yep, and it's not a required survey, it's optional, but we're hoping to learn some things on what we can do better in the building department to serve the people of Forest Lake.
Got it, thanks, I appreciate that. I was just a little fuzzy on the process, so.
I just have one quick, Al, your email for the joint power board, for the fire board rather, showed the 19th of July.
Well, I'll make that change and have it out.
It's not a big deal, but I was reading it today, and you sent it on the 23rd, and we're gonna have a meeting on the 19th. I'm going.
It was a great meeting. Budget approved.
So I had to pick on you a little bit, that's okay.
Sandy?
I have nothing more to add other than we're going live with utility billing. We're starting that process and going through, we extracted the last of the third-party data last week of our third party, and now we're going to be reconciling that and making sure that this works for the future.
Great,
Terrific. Nice milestone.
fantastic.
Anything for Sandy? All right. Amanda?
No updates from legal.
Dan?
Members of the council, just a reminder that the feedback for the downtown plan is still open. We had an update tonight at EDA, and they're happy with the amount of feedback so far. But we always are collecting more, so those will be open, I believe, through the 3rd week of August. So it's on investinforestlake.com under downtown planning. It's also posted on the city's website, and it's been going out in the weekly email and on social media. So robust response so far, but always looking for more feedback on the plan.
And you're at Arts in the Park as well?
They were there, the planner was there last week and collected comments, and we're also going out, there's been some comments on Facebook that we're gonna be collecting as well and getting to the planner so they can get those incorporated into the feedback as well.
Okay, okay.
Sandy?
Karen?
Karen?
It's okay, I
Gosh, looking
I
right
forgot, I
at
forgot
you.
roll call on you
Sorry.
earlier.
Skip
I don't
lane,
have any
wasn't
updates.
Karen?
No updates for me.
Right. Start with council updates, or just continue going down the line. Councilmember Valento?
So for the Rush Line Corridor, they will be transitioning from the county to Metropolitan Council, and they plan to rebrand the corridor as Metro Purple Line. And then they will be entering a new phase of project development, the project development phase, and then they plan to start forming project committees in early 2022.
You? Councilmember Husnick?
This evening, I attended the combination EDA meeting with the downtown committee, as you attended, and Dan just touched on part of it here. We have folks working on a plan for our downtown area, and they're collecting feedback from the community, and I think they're doing a really thorough job, so that's all I have.
Very good. Councilmember Bryce-Jones?
Just a couple of things I want to acknowledge. Quite a bit of citizen communication over the last week, and although I wasn't able to attend the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission meeting, I did kind of catch up via the live, or the video and conversation with Coordinator Jamie Mouche. In addition to the update Engineer Goodman had on the North Shore Circle Park Storm Management considerations, just a couple of other key points from that meeting. A park event permit application has been issued for a fishing contest coming up on July 31st. It's going to impact some parking at Lakeside Park. They're going to be blocking off some sections. So just important, I think, for council to be aware of that in case they receive any concerns or complaints from the community. And then they also voted unanimously, those that were in attendance, to move forward with the Castlewood Golf Course Clubhouse. So a 5-0 vote in support and to move to the next step, which is the Planning Commission. So more on that soon.
Planning Commission Wednesday night, that will be on that agenda.
Once that's through, Planning Commission, and we've kind of got Parks aligned, Planning Commission aligned, can that come back to council as kind of the full package of?
That's the intent, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious too. One of the questions that's come up for me is, I know the building has technically been kind of paid for, right? We've expended for that, but what is going to be the cost of the final stages?
Yeah,
of
the building
this?
and the construction of the building has been paid for. It's just the
Okay.
interior finishing that we need to figure out.
Okay.
All right, if you don't mind, I had one other thing. if you don't
Please,
mind.
jump in.
I did attend the Airport Commission meeting last Wednesday too, and that had gotten changed so many times, but not a whole lot there except to announce that on August 21st, which is a Saturday, we're gonna have an open house there, and there's gonna be some airplanes coming in, and the Lions are gonna come and make breakfast and all that kind of stuff, so if you happen to be around, come on over. They won't be giving any rides that day, but we've done that in the past, and it got to be just a little bit too much, but that will be occurring, so if the weather's great, please come out, so.
Thank you. And I don't have any updates beyond what's already been discussed. Just encourage everyone to provide some updates to the downtown plan. Not only are you able to provide raw comments, but also to see other comments that have already been submitted and upvote or downvote those comments, so you can kind of comment on the comments. It's a nice platform to gather feedback. Karen, I think you've got one more thing.
I did. I have one more comment, and I wanted to direct council and public that's watching the meeting to our webpage. So new, because now we are doing these hybrid meetings. We wanted to make sure we had a way for people to participate remotely. So we will continue to post, these meetings will continue in Zoom. What I've created now is a web card on the front page of our website where residents, anybody can go, click on the link to register for the Zoom meeting and be able to participate remotely from their home if they want to be able to do that. And I have the capability of then moving them into the meeting. They'll show up on the screen. They can still, and so if they don't feel comfortable coming in, they can attend a meeting from home.
That's great.
So,
Nice.
and that's on the front page of our website.
Perfect. Thank you, Karen. That being the end of our planned agenda this evening, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Valento and a second from Councilmember Husnick. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.